The classic music of Excitebike, one of the most iconic games of our history. Making it on many top 10 lists, it's no surprise this game has a very special place in our hearts. Released in November of 1984, almost a full year after the initial release of the Famicom, and shortly after in Japan's arcades. There are some major differences between the arcade and the console versions. In the console version, you only had 3 selections: Selection A, Selection B, and Design. We will get into Design later. In Selection A, it's time trials. There are no opponents to race with, and your best times will be saved until you power off the machine. In Selection B, you race against opponents for the best time, adding a bit more difficulty to accomplish the perfect score. In the Excitebike arcade version, they've taken out Selection A and B and added 3 levels: Beginner, Intermediate, and Advanced. So instead of having Selection A and Selection B, you now have Challenge Race and Excitebike. Challenge Race is the time trials, and the Excitebike is racing against opponents. The arcade version is also missing the design section. In October 18th of 1985, Nintendo Entertainment System was released in North America and South Korea. Excitebike was one of the launch titles for the NES system, including with Mario and Duck Hunt and a few others. Excitebike and a few other launch titles had a Famicom to NES adapter. Nintendo used these Famicom adapters because they were expecting huge sales of the Christmas season of 1985. They couldn't produce enough NES boards, so they used a Famicom adapter to meet up the supply and demand. Some people found this out quickly and used this to play Famicom imports. In 1985, Hudson Soft had an exclusive deal to port Excitebike to a few PC platforms: the Sharp X1 and the NEC PC 8801. And while this port did bring Excitebike to some PC users, the port was less than satisfactory. While the graphics and sound were subpar to the NES version, this was due to the limitations of the PCs back then. While it did give some people the excitement to play Excitebike on their PCs, but as you can see here, it was just not the same. The Famicom, the NES, and the PC ports had a design feature where you can design your own tracks. Letters A through S are different types of tracks and elements that you can place on the track, each letter representing a different element that you can place. And when you're done with the course, you can select N and select how many laps this track would have. And when you're done, you can play in either Play Mode A and Play Mode B. A, of course, is a single time trial, and B is with the opponents. Now, the save function only worked on the Famicom and the PC versions. The Famicom needed the Family Basic keyboard in order to save, and I will explain this in a little bit. But that didn't stop North America from trying to save and loading courses. In the North American version, you could save. It doesn't give you any error, so you're thinking that everything is saved correctly. It's not until you start loading it that has a different story. And when you scroll down to load and select load, you're presented with a loading screen. It doesn't matter how long you wait, minutes, hours, days, years, this loading screen will stay on forever. Some people originally thought it just took forever to load, but it never loaded, and there's a good reason for that. Let's take a look at the Excitebike manual. There's got to be something in here that says something about the save feature. On page 9, it describes the design mode. Let's take a closer look at the note. It says, save and load selections are not operable in this game. They have been programmed for potential product developments. The NES did not have the save feature, but the Famicom did in Japan, and this is what you had to get in order to have the save feature.
ファミリーコンピュータの楽しさを広げるファミリーベーシック。キーを叩いてファミリーコンピュータと新しいコミュニケーション。内蔵されているいろいろなキャラクターでゲームが作れます。作ったゲームなどを残すときは専用のデータレコーダが最適です。そして音楽、計算、伝言板などにも使えるファミリーベーシック。
So you needed a data recorder and a Family Basic keyboard. The data recorder uses audio cassettes, and some of you may have not know what an audio cassette is. It was something in the 80s, 70s that you used to record music onto. Though it was not the greatest, but some computers used it as for storage medium. In this case, the Nintendo Famicom used it to store data. Once you got the keyboard and tape, you had to plug them into each other. So once you got them, you had to plug the corresponding ports into the keyboard and the corresponding ports into the tape drive. And when that was all said and finished, you had something that looked like this. You needed all of this just to save a game in Excitebike. And though there are a few games that do support the data recorder, we're just going to focus on Excitebike in this video. Let's go over the steps you needed to do in order to save a track in Excitebike. And when you're done testing out your course and you're satisfied with it, first thing you needed to do, well, you have to go and hit record on the tape player. And once you hit record, you go down to hit save and you click on it. And you wait. And you wait some more. This is the part where you just have to wait a lot. Because it's just going to take some time. And you're just waiting, staring at the save screen, and it's staring right back at you. And yes, we're still waiting. Oh, it's finally done. Then you press stop. And then once it's stopped, you press rewind. And don't go too far, just rewind it to the part where you just hit record. And then when you got it all synced up, then you go to load. Now at the loading screen, then you go ahead and press play, and you wait until it's loaded in. Now I personally don't own a Famicom or a Famicom Basic keyboard or a Famicom data recorder, but I've known someone who has one of these and showed me how this is done, and yes, this is the exact same steps you have to do in order to save an Excitebike. And trust me, sometimes it will fail to load, sometimes it'll fail to save, but the good news is that you could save multiple tracks on one cassette. But thanks to modern technology, we don't have to do all of this just to save tracks in Excitebike anymore. The Virtual Console for the Wii U has fixed the load and save features, as well as keeping your time for each track so you can go in and try to beat your best record. Which brings us to the Famicom Disk System, which was released in February 21st of 1986. Versus Excitebike combines the arcade version with a new two-player mode where you can race against your buddy, and a new design mode that is far superior than the original Excitebike. Since I already covered the arcade version, we're going to go ahead and go into the Versus mode. There are two modes in Versus mode. There's Battle and Free. Battle, you can run each other off the road and wreck each other's bike. Free has no collision at all, and you can just race for the fun of it. You can select pre-made courses or courses that you've saved in the Versus editor, which we'll go over in a little bit. Versus mode has a split screen. First player is on the bottom, second player is on top. And this is awesome. The only issue I ever had with it is that when you jump, sometimes you go into the second player screen. And this can be confusing sometimes, but it doesn't affect the gameplay at all. In Versus Excitebike, there's a new Versus Edit, which is a much more improved editor and design system. You can save multiple tracks to discs and use them to race against your buddies in Versus mode. Disc Edit is a way to rearrange your tracks for Versus mode. 1, 2, and 3, you cannot change or move or do whatever you want, but 4, 5, 6, and 7, you can arrange your tracks how you want. You can even put 1, 2, or 3 in those if you wish. It's an interesting tool, and it takes a while to get used to, but once you figure it out, it's pretty cool. It's a good way of getting things ready when you play against your buddy. Track Editor was hugely overhauled. Instead of having letters representing each element, now you had pictures. This made track editing easier and faster. The new track editor had a test run where you can test out your courses before you save them. This is a great way to practice and see if you need to add or change anything before you saved it to disk. In April of 1995, Nintendo released Satellaview. It was a satellite modem for the Super Famicom system in Japan. Many regarded it as one of the first online systems to be put in place for a console, though it was only one-way direction and sometimes you can only download games at certain times or even play games at certain times, which actually had audio commentary when you played the game. In May of 1997, Nintendo released Excitebike Bun Bun Mario Battle Stadium for the Satellaview. In this remake, you get to play and race against Mario characters. There were 4 episodes throughout the year. Episode 1 featured Mario, Luigi, and Toad, Episode 2 added Wario, Episode 3 added Princess Peach, and Episode 4 added Yoshi and removed Luigi. Poor Luigi gets the shaft again.
Let's go!
Before each race, the game offered you a track preview, which was skippable. It's nice to see what's coming along, but sometimes you just don't want to sit through this whole thing, because it does take a while. Like in Versus Excitebike, you race time trials first, then against your opponents. The mechanics are the same, but you race against Mario characters and you collect coins. The more coins you collect, the faster you go, just like in Mario Kart. This really does have a Mario Kart feel to it. When you collect 8 coins, you go into Super Mode. This allows you to go turbo without any overheating issues at all. In time trial mode, you keep going until time runs out or you hit 10 laps. It's most likely you'll hit the time limit first before the 10 laps, but it's programmed in. The game takes the best time out of all the laps you raced, and that is your final score. In Excitebike mode, if you kept your super from your previous time trials, you get to keep it and it carries over here. Just like in the time trial mode, you get coins by running them over on the track, but you also get coins for crashing your opponents. I'm also going to tell you right now, Princess Peach is out to get you and she will wreck you as many times as she can. After each set, you get to play a minigame, either jump contest or boo jumping. In jump contest, your goal is to get the furthest jump before time runs out. You get multiple tries before time runs out, and it's really challenging because you can combine jumps, do some tricks to get really, really far. In boo jumping, your goal is to jump over as many boos as you can before time runs out. You get multiple tries and it'll take your best score. Just like in original Excitebike, tracks get more difficult as you go on. This by far has to be my favorite version of Excitebike. Excitebike Bun Bun Mario Battle Stadium only saw its release on the Satellaview in Japan, and it's a shame that this didn't get ported over to its own game. Add a track editor and versus mode, you have one heck of a game. Hey guys, this is the end of part 1. Part 2 will be coming very soon. If you liked this video, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.